Excel's not built for this kind of analysis. So I go online, I'm looking for a tool that tells me how often does price break out of the opening range? How often is the gap fill? What weekdays have the most volume and range? Doesn't exist. It does not exist. I've spoken to probably close to 1,500, 2,000 people now. Not a single person has told me about a product that genuinely is a competitor of ours, which is a little bit scary, but it's true. Like, nobody has done this yet. So I was like, all right, like, I have an opportunity to build this company, and we've done it. And I mean, people love it. We've changed a lot of traders' lives. This is where the data is, pretty much. This is like where all the data changes. It updates every single day. Almost all of the data that we have is extremely actionable, mostly for scalpers and day traders. Almost all of the reports are like limited for like, does this happen or not today?
Having the foundation built on data and statistics is the thing that's going to help you get through periods where you are facing self-doubt, where you maybe have some psychological issues. It's knowing that you have the numbers on your side is such a comforting feeling when you're actually trading, and it really helps you zoom out and take a look at the bigger picture. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Hydra Funding Podcast. Actually, this is something I totally forgot to mention to my co-host and our special guest today. You know, James and I, we talked about giving a name for this podcast, and I've been thinking about it, and I decided that we're going to name our podcast. Are you ready? Drum roll. Challenge Accepted. It's going to be the Challenge Accepted Podcast. Okay? Nice. I really like this name. What do you think, James? Give it to me if you think it's terrible or cheesy.
I like it. I thought you were going to go with more of a golf name, but I guess Challenge Accepted is when you try and tee off the golf tee box, you know, and so it's a challenge.
I take every golf hole as a challenge. Andre, what do you think about this name? Do you like it?
Honestly, it's pretty good. I like it.
Okay. It's okay. If you don't like it, it won't hurt my feelings. And I'm also not changing the name because I don't really care because I like it. So anyway, as you guys can see today, we have a very special guest, Andre, the CEO of Edgeful here. Really want to thank you for taking your time to join us on the podcast today. And of course, we have my favorite bald man on earth, James Bruce, my co-host here. And I hope that we can bring you guys a wonderful episode with our special guest. And without further ado, I'm going to let Andre take it away for a little bit. Please tell the audience, tell the viewers a little bit about who you are, what you do, what makes you tick, and a little bit about your company as well.
Yeah. So, what's up, everyone? My name is Andre. I'm the CEO, the founder of Edgeful. My background is in finance and accounting. I was an analyst at a hedge fund. I was an analyst at Goldman Sachs for 2.5 years. It was honestly an incredible experience working in finance, but it's not like just that corporate world was not really for me. And I left Goldman and I started to trade. I actually took my first ever trade in 2016. That was an options trade. And from there, it just kind of evolved into me being a trader after leaving Goldman, then looking for something like Edgeful, which I'll touch on in a second, not finding it, and thinking like there's a really good opportunity to build something that's really intuitive, that's easy for anyone to use, that will give you the information you need without trying to incorporate any signals or anything into that. So like really giving you the data that you need to develop an edge. And yeah, I mean, what makes me tick, honestly, I love the markets. As crazy as that sounds, I do love the markets. Like I've always been interested in money, in finance, and like how these things work, and like real estate. And yeah, that's what drove me to the financial markets. That's what drove me to Edgeful, to like build out Edgeful. And I can actually get into the story too at some point later if your guys are interested.
I would actually love to know this like entry into finance story, because I have a really interesting story as well. Like, long story short, my dad lost everything in the 2008 financial crisis because he was just way overexposed on some penny stocks. I had no idea what was going on back then, right? I was like 15 years old. And the funny thing is, fast forward now, I'm a trader. I run Hydra Funding, and my brother is also a trader, but he's trading for Morgan Stanley. So, he's working for a big bank, and, I'm over here running Hydra, doing my own trading. And it feels like there was that moment there in our family history that really pushed us in this direction. Like we knew that something went wrong along the way. And I really do think that that's part of the reason why my brother and I both ended up pursuing careers in a very similar industry, why there was a certain draw to it. And I think there's a natural kind of interest as well. Like it is quite a nerdy, geeky thing to kind of get into, but figuring out how money works is actually something really cool. So I'd love if you can get into this, if you could narrow down a couple of reasons, what really drove you to say, hey, this is where I want to dedicate my time, my energy, my effort, because it is a lot of it.
Yeah. So starting at what I wanted to study in college. So I did a double major and I studied finance and accounting. I thought to myself, I don't really love the concept of college, to be honest. I think I'm not one of those guys that's gonna be you have to go to college. It's the most important thing in the world. I actually think really the opposite personally.
I always thought it was a scam.
Yeah. I mean, it absolutely, in my opinion, just to be totally honest, I think it's completely a scam. I think it's totally unnecessary. You take on an extreme amount of debt to get a job that will in no way pay back that loan for the next 40 years, and you're tying yourself down to a job that you, probably aren't going to love for that long, if you do love it to start out. But I was okay, what are the options that I can study that actually I find interesting? So for example, there's lawyer, there's finance, there's doctor, that you can actually make some decent money, that makes going to college worth. I could never be a surgeon. I could never be a doctor because I hate needles, and I hate, I cannot even imagine, there's no amount of money you can pay me in the world to be a surgeon. So I was okay, that's out of the window. So I thought, okay, finance is very cool. I was very interested in the concept from even when I was young. I always thought that real estate development was very cool. Buying apartments, renting them out was very cool. And that concept kind of really fits nicely into finance too, just because there are real estate funds and et cetera, and all these things that kind of tie in. But finance and accounting was that piece where I was okay, if I understand the finance, if I understand accounting, that makes me a really good candidate for a job. I was always if I want to do something in the corporate world, I want to do it at the best place. So I was okay, Goldman Sachs is the place I want to be at, and ended up getting a job at Goldman. To be honest, it was one of the best experiences for me personally, just in terms of understanding how to work and really understanding how to put your foot all the way down on the throttle and then just leave it there, even though the engine is completely redlining. And you just leave it there because everyone else around you is also redlining and they're maintaining that pressure. Mm-hmm. And that environment is just so incredible for testing yourself and understanding how you can work. So the hours were from 7 a.m. to 3 a.m. every single day. And you don't really have a break. And the way that they do it is they give you an assignment that takes 3 days and they tell you to finish it in 2. And on the second day, they give you another one of those. So it's this cascading waterfall of never being able to catch up. And the work ethic that you develop in that environment is just to be honest, it's disgusting because you just cannot function without it. And that's where I developed this crazy attention to detail, this crazy work ethic where doesn't matter how many calls you've done, doesn't matter how tired you are, doesn't matter what mood you're in, your feelings go out the window, you do what you have to do. And then after working 20 hours a day for over 2 years, I was you know what? I'm done. The compensation is amazing, but if you do it by hour, you're making minimum wage, maybe less.
Mm. Do you think they do that on purpose? Do you think they really try to push you, past your limits really to kind of filter out the people who do end up deciding, hey, I can continue and push through. Yeah. Do you think they use that as almost a filter for the culture, right? Because the people who do end up staying, let's say 5, 10, I don't know, however many years and end up making a career out of it, they have to go through this grind, right? Do you think that's done intentionally? Because obviously they know their workers are going from 7 a.m. to 3 a.m., right? Yeah.
I do think that they do it on purpose, and I think that it's really smart. because once you get past a certain point where you're like in this rhythm, it becomes like the new normal. And once you like pass this hump, so like usually after like the 3-year mark, like if you stay for more than 3 years, you're probably going to stay for like 7. But if you don't make it to that 3-year mark, you're probably going to leave. So if they can get the most out of you before that 3-year mark, where like most people will either like leave or stay, they know that like, okay, we got the most out of this person. If they want to stay, that's great. If they want to leave, we still got the most out of them. And we have a resume as tall as a building from MIT, Berkeley, London School of Economics, like the best of the best. So like if someone leaves, we can replace them like this. So it's fine. But they do get the most out of all the talent that actually gets the jobs, which I think is I mean, from a business perspective, is an incredibly intelligent, obviously. Like they're the best for a reason. Like they know what they're doing.
So to segue that, what's the working culture like over there at Edgeful currently?
Good question. So very different and similar. So what I bring over from Goldman is the attention to detail is extremely important. I know that there are currently some like pixels out of place on the website. There are some things that are not perfect, but we want to make sure that we're aligning our resources properly. The attention to detail to me is extremely important because it matters. It really does matter. If you see sloppy mistakes here and there, especially from a data analytics company, there are going to be questions will come up. So that's number one. Super important. Number two is I want the least corporate culture possible. I want it to be a group of people that are friends, that can talk to each other freely, where you can use curse words, you can say whatever you want if you're having a bad day, like whatever you want to do, like it should be like a kind of like a group chat where internally it's not this corporate Goldman Sachs culture. The same thing goes for externally. All of our messaging, all of our social media, like the copy on all of our social media, all of our emails is very intentionally written in a way that you can tell, hopefully, or the aim is that you can tell that there is an actual person writing it. And it's not some like corporate headline and some corporate this and corporate that. And like, in my opinion, having a very corporate culture externally detaches you from your customers and detaches you from your users, because it's hard to resonate with someone that speaks like a robot.
I completely agree. I actually feel like our society as a whole and consumers, especially retail, I think we're all kind of moving away. There's like this paradigm shift almost away from like big box brands. People almost want something that's a little bit more curated. People want something that's more tailored for them. I think especially if you look at retail shopping experiences, people go a lot more for like I feel like boutique brands are almost making a little bit of a resurgence, right? Yeah. And I think that's what really separates a lot of these brands that do end up coming up from the bottom, is like this attention to detail and understanding their customer, like who are we speaking to, right? Because there's all these like top end, your Goldmans, your biggest brands in the world, and they're kind of all encompassing. And for small companies, smaller companies like Edgeful, like Hydra, for us to carve out our niche, we really have to think about, hey, who are we serving? Who are these big companies, who are the established players, not really serving, or like what are they not providing, or what's missing in the market? I'm sure that's part of what gave you the idea for Edgeful, right? I'd really love to also hear more about that.
Yeah.
Just on a quick note, the Edgeful workers, Andres told me the hardest workers are from South Africa that work with Edgeful. So.
We only have one, and that's true.
But do you work from 7 a.m. to 3 a.m. though? That's the question.
No,
what is your definition of hard work?
I was a diversity hire.
Oh my God. Yeah, as you were talking about, and I'll talk about the kind of like the story of Edgeful in a second, but as you were saying, who are you talking to? I think is so important. And one thing that I actually do, which has gotten completely unsustainable, but I have my calendar open 3 days a week for our users to book calls directly with me. personalized experience. How can I use Edgeful? Here's my trading style. Here are what my problems are. What reports do you recommend for me? And it takes up an extreme amount of time. This is all in Eastern time, but from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I have fully booked calls always for 2 weeks out. And that there's like a decision that we have to make is like, should we just hire someone to do it? And right now, I don't think so, because I don't want to play telephone with someone to actually see like the pain points of the user and to see this like the points of the user that like they're enjoying. Like, this is really easy. I like this, right? I dislike this. So another piece of that culture is making sure that like we have that direct connection with our users, because obviously like that's the most important. Like, they drive all of the decisions that we make like through these calls and like understanding what the pain points are. It's
that's actually awesome. Like I don't do this call thing, but I do something very similar, which is like I just recently like I rebuilt our entire AI database for our customer support on Intercom. So our AI is super smart now.
Yep.
But I actually respond to customer support inquiries directly sometimes, like, because I'm in there, I'm seeing what the AI is saying. We have our agents who are also responding.
Yeah.
But for those of you who are watching, sometimes when you get a response from support at hydrafunding.io, I don't say it. You don't know it's me, but it's actually me, because I pay a lot of attention. This is coming back to this attention to detail thing, right? Like, I really, really feel like, especially at the early stages of a business, I've done this, in my previous businesses as well, like keeping your ear to the ground and really figuring out, where is the customer struggling? What are the current issues? Really helps you, number one, resolve issues very, very quickly. Because if you start to hear, like there's 3, 4, 5 requests in the last 2 days around this issue, that this is something that's high impact, right? Like that's the only way you really know. Yep. Like you were saying, you don't want there to be this disconnect at this point in time. This is not something that you want to outsource a hire for at the moment, right? I feel like maybe you're in that same mindset that I have, which is I want to do things fast and I want to do things good. Like, I want things to be done fast and well, like with attention to detail. I want that attention to detail. And the way to do that is really by involving myself personally, right? Like, and do I have to do customer support? No, I don't. We have our agents that handle it, but this is my way of keeping my ear on the ground. Like, I know what our support agents are responding to. I know exactly what issues have been the most prevalent in the last 2 or 3 days. I know what the AI has been responding to. I know where the weaknesses are. And then I can go in and I can write articles. I can update the knowledge base and stuff like this to really make the customer experience better. And it happens like this. So I think we share a very similar kind of approach here, and I love actually hearing from someone else that's also running a company that's taking this approach, because I really actually enjoy doing this. It's work, but I think it's something that at the end of the day, when I get something over here done, I feel like I've made an impact on the customer, on whoever is a Hydra customer. I know that I have directly impacted your day and your experience with the product, and I think that's awesome.
Correct. And sorry, I was just going to say that as the owner, I mean, you can hire very good people, but from my experience, and in the high impact times, like in the early stages of the company, it's very hard to get someone to answer the way that you would want to answer that question. And eventually, you just have to do it, and you train your people. And it's important, like as the owner, to train your employees properly so they can answer in the way that as if like it's indistinguishable from you or them. But getting that experience for those early users is so important that, I give you like credit for doing that. But sorry, James, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, I think obviously as an independent contractor, I've worked for both Hydra and I'm working at the moment for both Hydra and Edgeful. And you guys have been super professional in the way that you handle things. And it's really easy to do business with the both of you guys, and work and growing in both of the companies. Just for the listeners that are, this far into the podcast, maybe if you can just give a brief, definition of what Edgeful actually does as a business for those that are actually interested. I know there's quite a few traders at Hydra that are going to be interested in Edgeful. Just give a brief, introduction of what it actually does and how it can help.
I can kind of tell you how it started, like what the whole founding story is, which will answer that question too.
Sure.
So when I started trade, I initially started with options, and I was very obsessed with Tesla. And I always thought about this concept. I was like, as I was researching these different concepts, like trading strategies, like opening range breakout, the gap fill was something that was it clicked with me because it gives you a bias and it gives you a target every single day. If we open below the previous close, you can be long bias targeting this close. So every day you have a bias. As a new trader, one of the things that personally I struggled with was like, should price go up? Should price go down? What's my bias? So I started to research the gap fill. And what I found was that people talk about it and they say, oh yeah, the gap always fills, like 100% of the time, which is obviously not true. I have a very, obviously, great data background. Like I'm very comfortable with numbers. I'm very comfortable with Excel. I actually have certifications in Excel. So I download a bunch of data, put it into Excel, and now I start to kind of decipher how often does the gap fill? How often does the gap up fill? How often does the gap down fill? Do certain weekdays have impact? Do certain gap sizes have impact? And now I can see, okay, these are the real probabilities. This is really how often this happens. Now that gives me an edge. That gives me information. So I start adding more and more into my Excel sheet until it becomes like unmanageable. Excel is not built for this kind of analysis. So I go online, I'm looking for a tool that tells me how often does price break out of the opening range? How often does the gap fill? What weekdays have the most volume and range? Doesn't exist. It does not exist. I've spoken to probably close to 1,500, 2,000 people now. Not a single person has told me about a product that genuinely is a competitor of ours, which is a little bit scary, but it's true. Like nobody has done this yet. So I was like, all right, like I have an opportunity to build this company and we've done it. And I mean, people love it. We've changed a lot of traders' lives. People are passing funded challenges with it, which is fantastic for me. That's the intention of the product. Like we want to help traders out. We want to give them the data that they would never otherwise have access to. Even coming from someone that had so much experience with data and with finance, I wasn't able to build this on my own. So you'd have to be a programmer. You'd have to have an insane amount of experience with data. So we are trying to, and the purpose of Edgeful is to give you the data that you need to actually build an edge and that you would not otherwise have access to. That answers the question. Kind of like that.
That's awesome. I really love that because I'm also very much like a numbers data guy. Like I really, when I first started trading, most of my time was spent backtesting, collecting data, really trying to figure out. I started from a very systematic point of view where it was just like completely just data collection. When I started, like it was like a couple years ago, backtesting software was nowhere close to where it is today, and I was doing a lot of spreadsheets. It was like a lot of data sample sets. If this, then that, collecting entries, and I would spend hours and hours and hours. Like I was obsessed with collecting data in order to really like try to find my edge, find where the probabilities lie. And I think it's also like an attention to detail thing. I think that's I think in combination with being curious, right? Like if someone says to you, "Oh, the gap always fills," and you're like, "Does it?" Most people are like, "Does it?" Or like, "Oh, I guess it does," right? Like, but you actually took the step to go further and be like, "I need to know." How often? Like I need to know exactly. Like when you tell me the gap always fills, what is this based off of? Have you collected the data? Like when someone's saying like, oh, like I trade this way, like I look at this strategy, I'm like, have you actually gone and collected data on it? Because it's actually bonkers if you're just like, you found some strategy off of anyone, whether it's me, whether it's James, anyone on the internet, and they say it works. It's bonkers if you just go in and you just start trading that way. I think you're insane. I think there's no way that that's going to work, right? Like, and I feel like what you've done with Edgeful is almost like you've aggregated the amount of time that somebody like me or James would have to go and collect data on our own. Like you've aggregated that time, you've condensed it, and then you've put it into a package that's digestible for even the average retail trader. I've seen the interface. Like I think what you guys do is extremely cool. So if any of you guys watching the podcast right now, honestly, Edgeful is a really, really cool piece of tech, and you guys should definitely go check it out. I think that what you're doing is actually incredible, and I applaud you for it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, even in its current form, like to me, because I know the roadmap, it's so even like from my eyes, because like I know what's coming next. Like I know what the new designs look like. Like I know what all the new features are going to look like. Like it even now looks like still so young, but there's so much stuff that we've iterated on. Like we're still very new for anyone who's watching. Like when you go in, like we launched in January of this year, and like everything that we've done has been from January until now. And there's a lot to change, like that, a lot of things that are coming that will change it. The intention is for Edgeful to be the place where traders come to actually make money. It's a challenge for sure. There's no question about it. But when you have the right information, you can start to pass challenges. You can start to get payouts. You can start to actually, like, even if you like trade options, for example, like we have a lot of options traders. We don't limit anything. So we have Forex, crypto, futures, and stocks. So like regardless of what you trade, like we have something for you. Like I know like there's geographical limitations on what you can trade. Like I know James can't trade futures. Like so for anyone who's watching, like regardless of where you are, like there are places that, like it is a good solution. And we want to make it like really the place for traders to come and make money.
Yeah, I think so. I think the next question, I think Andre, is obviously because I work close with you guys. There's a lot of questions on what reports should we use. What I'm sure you get that a lot on those calls that you do every single week. Yeah. What is your explanation, or what do you say to that question?
Yeah. So the short answer is it depends. the not cool, not like clippable answer is it depends on your trading style. And like, this is the real answer. That's why I do the calls. It depends on, or do you scalp? Do you day trade? Do you swing trade? Can you actually sit at your screens and manage your trades? And it's not I never give some like boilerplate, like here it is, here's the Holy Grail, because that obviously doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Are you able to sit at your screens? Are you able to manage your trades, or do you have to kind of set it up, set your levels in and just leave? Like, do you have a job or kids or whatever that kind of like pull you away? However, for day trading and scalping specifically, the two most popular reports that I've seen without question are the gap fill report and the opening range breakout report. And pretty much what those two do, and you guys can check it out. I can show it in a second if you guys don't mind. But what they do is they tell you how often price will retrace back to that previous day's close, previous session's close, which is the gap fill report. So every day you get a bias and you get a target. If you can just capture that move back to that previous close, that's the intention of the report. That's what that measures. The opening range breakout report is a little bit different. It's a different strategy. It's completely different. Opening range is the high and the low of the first 15 minutes from the market open. And this report measures how often does price only break out to one side, to the top side, how often does it only break down to the bottom side, and how often does it break both sides. With a couple of the more popular tickers, you're going to see a double break. And one of the things that I would recommend, just at a high level, obviously, like you need to, for anyone who's watching, like check the tickers, check the symbols by yourself on whatever you want to trade, but to wait for that first side to break and then enter to take that reversal to the opposite side of the orb. For a beginner trader, for example, someone who's trying to pass the challenge, it is a very simple setup. The reason is you just have to wait, find some exhaustion, take that reversal trade. You always have your levels plotted out for you every day. You know what they are, the high and low of the first 15 minutes. It's very like systemized. It's very like not mindless, but like almost once you understand how it actually works, once you see enough examples of it, you're like, oh yeah, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to take this trade. So those are the two that I would always recommend to start with. If you're kind of like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to start, like I don't know where to start, the gap fill and the opening range breakout report are the two simplest and the two easiest to really take advantage of.
Nice. Yeah, we'll throw in some of the reports that I like to use is the opening candle continuation. So if the first hour is bullish,
can we see some of those on screen? Can we just see some of those reports on screen? So any of the viewers here, who haven't used and experienced Edgeful before, like you can take a look at actually how clean the data is presented and how clean the interface is. That's one of the things I really, love about this platform.
Yeah, of course. So right here is Edgeful. Just I'll quickly scroll down. I'm in the stocks category right now, just because I'm sure that there are some different people. So we do have Forex, crypto, and futures for anyone who wants to explore other things. We have over 100 total reports. So if you're not interested in the gap fill, if you're not interested in the opening range breakout or anything that James is talking about now, we do have something for you. And if we don't have something for you, we take report requests to build or a custom report for our users. And it's part of the subscription. There's no upsell. We will build one report per month for all of our users. So that's just one thing. So if there isn't something for you, we can make it. But just in terms of the layout, I'll quickly just show you guys. So this is where the data is pretty much. This is like where all the data changes. It updates every single day. Then we have some explainers down here, some more explainers. This is a table that actually makes up all of the individual days. So like this is the Excel file kind of that will make up all the results. You can see that here. And then a price chart and then the video. Anyone who's watching this, I highly recommend if you're exploring some of these different reports, just go straight to the video because they're at most 5 minutes and they will tell you what the report measures, how you can use it with a live chart example. So always jump straight to the videos. It'll save you the most time and it'll save you any confusion, like what your assumptions are around what it's measuring. But the gap fill report, just to touch on it quickly, this is the one that I always recommend. Almost 70% of the time for SPY, for the S&P 500 ETF, price on a gap up is going to come back down and touch that previous close. Sorry, did I say gap down? Gap up is going to come down and touch that previous close. And gaps down, 71% of the time today is going to come up and touch that previous close. So almost all of the data that we have is extremely actionable, mostly for scalpers and day traders. Almost all of the reports are like limited for like, does this happen or not today? So this is one of them. And I'll just switch to the orb really quickly. So you can see kind of like the difference of how things are laid out. So this is the opening range breakout. And then you can see here, this is how often price only breaks out to the top side of the orb. This is how often it breaks only to the downside. And then here, you can see that almost 70% of the time, price is going to break out to the one side and then come back down to the other side. And then vice versa. If it breaks down to the bottom side, it can come up to the top side. So we also have these little like variants. So right here, you can also see things by weekday. So you can actually filter down. Like if I only want to see Thursdays, okay, so today is Thursday. I know that there's almost an 80% chance in the last 6 months that price is going to break both sides of the orb.
That's incredible. I mean, 80%, right? Like that's an extremely significant edge that you can even find with yourself, right? I think, you know, for those of you guys who are watching this, who, you know, maybe haven't kind of gone through the time to collect data, you know, who don't really have a concrete strategy, this is not a strategy in itself. The way that I would see this data, like putting myself back into the shoes of like, hey, you know, 3 years ago when I first started out, this becomes a foundational piece, right? This becomes a foundation of me developing a strategy. For example, like if I look at something, you know, like this, where I understand that there's a significant edge regarding gap fills, then I can already see myself building a systematic entry method into how I'm going to get myself involved, right? Like there's your edge, there's what is most likely going to happen percentage-wise in a market. And then the second part of trading really is like, how do you get yourself involved? Where's your stop loss? How do you enter? How do you manage your trade? But knowing that you have this much significance in terms of data backing this move, creating your strategy and how you get involved almost becomes the easy part, right? Like, and that's kind of where different traders can take different entries, you know, whether you want to use something like VWAP, whether you want to use something like EMAs, you know, there's a lot of different ways to get yourself involved. But having this, like, I love that that's also the name, by the way. I really like the name Edgeful, because this is really what it's about. It's like the foundational piece. Like, where do you find your edge? And how do you build upon that, right? Yeah,
exactly. It's for those of you who like don't really pay attention to the name, if you guys know, like, I mean, obviously I'm sure you guys are familiar with the word joyful or cheerful or masterful. It's just like joy and then the suffix of full. And then now the name of Edgeful is obviously it's having an edge and then full. So it's like that same concept. So I mean, I appreciate you noticing. Some people don't notice. But yeah, we're not going to give you in here an entry signal, a stop loss, and a profit target. We're going to tell you how often does this happen. You can take advantage of it. And for the most part, to be honest, the people who give signals, like one of the problems with it is if I give you a buy signal and then it comes into drawdown, and let's say I'm the person giving a signal, so I know where my stop loss is. I can afford the stop loss. I'm fine with it. now we're in drawdown together and you've copied my trade and you can't afford my stop loss. Now you're going to get stopped out before the trade gets invalidated, and then it's going to go into your favor. And I'm sure, I mean, that by itself has happened to everyone, like where you get stopped out, it goes into your favor, obviously. But when you take signals, you never actually genuinely understand the reason why you're taking the trades, which really,
Correct.
It makes it extremely difficult, number one, to actually learn how to trade and like learn this skill, but also understanding why your profit targets are in certain places and actually holding to those targets and actually stopping out at certain places or being able to afford certain stop losses is also like it just doesn't happen when you take signals. So do yourself a favor. In the beginning, it's going to be more difficult if you just learn it on your own rather than taking signals. But when you actually have the data on your side, it's a lot easier and you can be a lot more confident to take the trades, to stick to your trades, to sit and draw down, because you know, like, hey, I have the X probability of this working out right now, so I'm going to stay and I'm okay with this. And also taking a loss, honestly. So many people have such a problem. Like they take 2 losses in a row and they're like, oh, my strategy doesn't work anymore.
And it's I think James and I, we've talked about this. Like I think people jump around, trying different strategies. Like if something doesn't work, it's actually really cool because like recently I just switched over from day trading to swing trading. This is something else that I want to ask you about. Like, but I'll get into that. And I trade a very similar strategy for swing trading as I was in day trading. But even then, before I ever implemented my swing trading strategy, it's generally very systematic. There is some discretion involved, but I'm like a 75 to 80% systematic trader. My discretion really only comes on like whether I take an entry or not. Like I'll look for a signal. If the signal is there, I see whether I actually want to take it or not. Right? That's where my discretion comes in. I collected so much data on this, and I know that like it's not because I've been already trading a very, very similar strategy for a long time, but I went and I did more back testing. I collected over 100 entries just so I could understand with the different sets of data. I always collect entries and data sets in sets of 20 to 30. So it's like I view trades in batches. I think that's something that traders really need to do is instead of viewing your trades as 1 or 2 individual outcomes, start taking a look at them in batches of 20 to 30, right? Like you need to start collecting data. Like data is meaningless without sample size. Like you can do 2 trades and have 100% win rate. It doesn't mean anything, right? So I started to understand from the data that like, oh, cool. There's certain sets where I'm, the complete set is just losing. Like I'm overall down 1% after this set of 20, but over my entire collection of 120 trades, I'm up almost 40 RR, right? Like, but there's sets where I'm in drawdown completely, over 20 or 30 trades. When you go to the live markets and when you actually start to trade, this helps you get through periods of drawdown. Like this helps you because sometimes it happens. Like people don't understand. Drawdown can be, especially swing trading. Now I'm getting used to it. It could be like over a month I'm in drawdown, right? Like day trading, things move a little bit faster. But if I didn't have the confidence, right? Like if I didn't have this edge that I knew existed, if I go through a period of 20 trades and I've only won 20%, right? When my expected win rate is about 45, I'm not going to then say, hey, fuck this strategy, I'm done. Like I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to keep trading. It's collecting data and having this edge, right? Having the foundation built on data and statistics is the thing that's going to help you get through periods where you are facing self-doubt, where you maybe have some psychological issues. You know that the edge and the edge is there and the numbers are on your side. Right. So instead of having to completely do that for yourself now, like you could do something like take a set of data, take something from Edgeful, build something around it, and understand that I would still say you have to go and backtest your particular entry strategy, but like it's knowing that you have the numbers on your side is such a comforting feeling when you're actually trading, and it really helps you zoom out and take a look at the bigger picture. And I think that that's something that every single trader needs to do, like sample size, collect data, right? Like start building an edge. And I think I wanted to ask you actually, Andre, is, with your schedule now, I'm sure like your calendar is chock full, right? Like, do you still trade? Do you still, are you still actively trading? Like, are you doing anything on the markets at the moment?
Yeah. So I recently, like probably 3 months ago, was like, you know what? I don't have I cannot assign the attention to trading that it deserves and that it requires for me and my trading style. So I switched from, this is like kind of like moving back. So I used to trade options directionally. You buy calls, you buy puts. So like if you want price to go up, you buy calls. If you want price to go down, you buy puts. And that requires a lot of attention because the options prices, they move very violently, especially if you're trading shorter expirations. I don't want to get into the details of what that means.
Yo, so that's something I've been hearing about, like the final day. What is it? 1 day to expire? Like that.
I'm sure you've seen.
Yeah. That's been exploding. I've been seeing that. I watch a YouTube video and it's crazy, actually.
Yeah.
Sorry.
For anyone who's actually interested in doing zero DTEs because you see like 1,000% return in a day, please do yourself a favor and just like, if you can mute on Twitter, on whatever, like the zero DTE, if you can mute that so you never see anything relating to that ever, please do yourself a favor. It is literally, it is almost impossible to make money consistently doing that. Like the people who show those 1,000% returns probably have like 40, like 100% losses, and they show 1,000% return because the way that those options decay and like the kind of like the foundation of options, they have an expiration date. The closer you are to the expiration date, the more violent the moves become because you're either going to be right or wrong. Like if you have like, let's just say 1 hour until you're either right or wrong, the price is going to do this. But if you have a year, it's going to be a lot more flat. Please do yourself a favor. If anyone is watching, do not trade zero DTEs ever. Always trade a minimum of a 5-day to expiration. It will save you a lot of money. It will allow you to sit in more drawdown without literally blowing your whole position. But that's kind of a side. So I moved from trading directionally as the work for Edgeful started to ramp up to selling options. Now, again, this is not an options podcast, but selling options, and you sell vertical credit spreads, and I'm just only saying that for the people who might be interested. You sell vertical credit spreads, and what happens is you sell the option, and then you allow that time decay to work in your favor now. So let's say, in an example, let's say the new iPhone comes out, it's $1,600, you buy it, and then you resell it the same, like that same day. And let's say you told Apple you have to trade it back in a year. The value of that iPhone in a year is going to be a lot lower, obviously. So now you can let the value decay, and now you can buy it back and then give it back to Apple. That's what you're doing. So you have the time decay on your side when you sell options because by nature that's how they're built, and that gives you a little bit more room it puts me more in like the day trading category where I can set the trade, I can just set alerts, and I can leave it, and that gives me more time to work on Edgeful. But I found that I am not the personality type that can set up a trade, close my platform, like my trading platform, and then just like, oh, I hope it's going well. I have to look at it. I have to look at it. So I found myself getting super distracted from my trading on Edgeful. So if I'm doing something, if I'm on a call, I'm like on the side, like checking my P&L, like is this going to blow up? Because like, again, specifically to like option selling, your risk to reward is very low, but your win rate is really high. Like your win rate is probably like 90%, but your one bad loss can wipe like 10 days of wins. Mm-hmm. So your risk management has to be like on point. That's why I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like it's just too distracting. Like I don't know. To me, I couldn't do it. I have to manage it. I don't know. Maybe I'm like OCD, like I'm like a freak with it, but like I have to manage my trade. So then I started to develop an algo. And this algo is something that I've been using. I've been testing it since August 1st. I mean, the returns have been incredible, honestly. It's on futures. The returns have been insane. It's been like now over 100% since August 1st until yesterday, which has been like truly incredible. And like it sometimes feels too good to be true, to be honest. But I mean, it's been working, and I've been refining it, and I've been using the Edgeful data to continue to refine it. So that's like the kind of the arc of how my trading has been going. As my schedule gets like busier and busier, I mean, I'm sure it'll take a trade today, but after 9:30, which not yet. But the attention that Edgeful requires from me, and I see obviously a massive opportunity with Edgeful, so I want to give it all the attention it deserves. Like I don't want to carve out an hour and a half or 2 hours from 9:30 to 11:30 and just say like, hey guys, like I'm trading right now. I'm going to sit here and just like wait at my screens and hope that I get a setup and then not work. So, and if I don't get it set up, I'm going to be answering messages. I'm going to be answering emails. I'm going to be doing something. And that takes that attention away. So like I've moved to the algos, which like, I know they kind of have a bad reputation. Like, I know that like, yo, you have this fucking crazy algo, like, oh, like whatever. But it's
most people are selling martingale bots. That's, you know.
I know that it has such a bad reputation, but like it's not one of those. And like I was considering, should I put it into Edgeful? Should I not? Like, should I do it? And I've kind of been going a little bit back and forth on it, on whether I should include it or not. Just like completely like totally like side note of like whether I should do it or not. But the returns have been incredible. And like, that's where that's where my trading is now. Because I just like, I don't understand that if your trading is not your, like the way that James, like trading is his thing, like that's that he makes content around it. Like I can't do that anymore. And maybe it's because I have to be like my attention to detail, like I need to be like managing everything, that I just personally can't do it anymore. But I'm very happy with the way that the algorithm has been doing. And yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at right now.
I feel you on that. Like that's part of the reason why like I switched over to swing trading, because you know, as Hydra started to grow, we started to have more employees I need to manage, and we're building a company, right? Like I'm building the experience. There's a lot of stuff that is going on in the background, and like usually I work in periods of like sprints, like you know, this needs to be done, that needs to be done. Like there's certain developments, talking about roadmap, right? Like we know what's coming up, and as those deadlines start to come up, like things really start to get hectic. I know the team is working really hard and I need to be there because I'm paying attention. I want everything to be right. And like I started to realize this year that I was like, it's starting to be this pull away where like I'm about to get on a call or I'm managing something and then I'm like, oh no, but a trade setup's happening. Like I need to like just be here, and I'll be on a call and I'll just have my charts open on the side, like hey, just and I'm not really listening, you know. And then if I'm in a position, I'm like, oh, is this ripping? No. Okay, we're in drawdown. Like it really, like I can't do both at the same time. And that's why I've switched over more to swing trading. September was actually my first full month of like only 1 hour chart entries. And it's been, the adjustment has been real. Like I really needed to get myself to a point where I could be like, hey, the trade's running and I just need to pretend it doesn't exist, because that's how I built the entire execution system. The main difference between how I used to trade day trading and now isn't so much in the system and executions, it's more in the management. Like I just set and forget now, right? Like and I really had to kind of get used to doing, you know, trading in a system that just allowed me, you know, to step away. And I was like, hey, that's the whole reason I'm doing it. And even now, like, you know, with my schedule the way it is, like, I haven't really been on the charts much this week, just because the schedule for the team has been so full. We've just hired some new people. Like we've just started to run this competition. We had new landing pages and stuff that, you know, that's being built. And then we have this podcast. So there's a lot of things happening that, you know, sometimes does take me away from that. So maybe what I really need to look at is what you're doing, which is
Andre's martingale bot.
Andre's martingale.
No. None of that.
No, but I think just on what you guys are saying, obviously trading's like what I do, but I've kind of done the same. I only trade now from 3 p.m., which is actually at the moment now, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. South African time. I'm trading the US markets. I used to trade a lot of currencies. I'm only trading US markets and a little bit of DAX in the London session, but that's my trading time. And then the rest of the time I'm working on the trading content, other businesses, stuff like that. So I think the main thing is, as you grow as a trader and as an entrepreneur, businessman, you realize that like trading doesn't have to be all day, every day. You can do it, but you can actually create other streams of income too.
Yeah. And taking a good setup is not actually going to happen every day either.
No.
So having that discipline, even as like a day trader, to sit there and just be like, okay, I'm going to stare at this chart, and we show up to work, and we make no money. You can, as a trader, you can show up to work, you can lose money, you can make money, and you can be flat. And that's like being able to sit there, like you're saying, and like take the trade and then also be on a call or like write an email or trying to manage this thing. And now you have this thing, this new project that's being released, or you're trying to like you just mentioned, the landing pages. Like landing pages, people don't realize like how much actual work goes into it. It's like, oh yeah, just put this here, put this there. It's like, well, how does the copy going to look? What about the different screen sizes? So does this collapse nicely? Does it not collapse nicely? Like, what about the font?
And there's like a whole flow that happens past the landing page, right? If I have a landing page and I'm collecting an email, it's like, if you built any kind of online business, you'll understand that like you're trying to curate the customer journey. Like you're trying to really understand what stage your customer is at, what kind of offers you're presenting to them, how can you best introduce certain offers, or what exactly is the touch point that you need to touch on. Like you're curating and crafting an entire customer journey and experience. It's not just like, oh, this website. Like if people who have built funnels, websites, products, run a business, like you guys will know exactly what we're talking about. It's a lot of work that happens behind the front end. Like you're, as a user, you come on, like you're in this complicated web that I've designed. Okay. Like you're in my thing now. Like I know exactly where you're at. Like I know exactly what you're doing. And it's about building this whole system. I think that's why I really, really enjoy business, especially like working with online, online business. I'm a big data nerd, right? Like, so I love knowing all these touch points. I really love being able to use different customer data to kind of understand, okay, what are we doing well? What are we not doing so well? Like what needs to be improved? And that then turns into this whole roadmap. Like you have the forward-looking view of what exactly is happening with Edgeful, and you know like what exactly you're trying to tackle. And it's the same thing with Hydra. Like I know exactly what we're building, and it's like we're not even done building whatever we're currently building. There's already like this next thing and the next thing that I'm already there. Like, oh, like I just, maybe I need to hire someone else to like get this going faster. Like there's a million decisions to kind of make at any point. So I really understand like why you kind of got into this algo side and how you decide, like why you decided to build this, because trying to trade at the same time while running a company, that's like a very, very big challenge. Like it is something that's very taxing for you, not just time wise, but also like people talk about, financial capital, but there's also mental capital, right? Like we only have this much, right? Like if you're like exhausted, tired, day full of meetings, calls and all that, and then you try to like go and trade and, try to make the best decisions for the next 2 or 3 hours, good luck, really like good luck with that.
Yeah, forget it. And that mental capital is something that people don't talk about. And I think that that's like a muscle you develop, or it's a muscle you build as you empty the tank. The more times like the first time you empty the tank, you're like, oh, I'm like laid on the floor flat. Like, oh my God, I can't do anything else. Like, don't talk to me. I can't think. Like, I can't even I can't do anything. But the more times that you empty that tank, you become like more resilient to it. Yeah. And that's where, like I mentioned earlier, like having your foot down on that throttle, you're redlining the engine, and you're still able to put work out that's quality work. And I feel like over time you learn how to manage with that like depleted mental energy. I mean, like for me, like I can feel it. Like if I have like 4 hours straight of calls, and for me personally, like I want to give every person on the call like a fresh experience, like as if it's my first call of the day.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to come in with energy. I want to come in with like charisma. I want to be really helpful, but you learn how to manage it. But I mean, even now, like sometimes for me, like I'm just like, yo, you guys got to give me a break. Like I have to go outside. Like I have to go for a walk. Like I cannot do any more right now. Like I can't think straight. It'd just be like a waste of time if we get on the call. Like give me 30 minutes and I'll be back. But I mean, that mental energy for trading is super important. Like if you're not feeling it today, like if you're not feeling sharp, like you're not feeling like you're feeling good, just like don't trade, or paper trade maybe, or like something else. But that it's such an important point you made, like as a business owner, as a trader, to be mindful about that mental capital.
Yeah, I really love that we're kind of circling back to, like kind of where we started, which is like your Goldman days and that training and that like, I remember the like grueling times I spent growing my first company, which was a meal prep company. It was a very similar thing. Like I had no money, no nothing. Like I was cooking the food that we were sending out, I was cooking it from my own apartment. Like it was just fully bootstrapped. And I was working like 7 days a week. Like when I thought I couldn't do anymore, like I found the energy to go and do some more, I would be falling asleep like at my computer, like trying to finish my accounts or like my books. Like I would wake up like, oh yeah, I fell asleep at my desk again. Like it's like 5 o'clock in the morning, right? Like I somehow passed out at 2 and I'm like, okay, I really got to go to bed. And to those of you that have never gone through like that like type of grueling experience, I'm not saying like it's something you have to do, but I look back at that time and I know the amount of fortitude that I carry within me. Like I know how far I can push myself now. And I did like experience a lot of burnout because I pushed so hard for so long. Like it was years and years. Like it was almost like 3 years in a row of like this type, this level. And I was like, I realized, I was like, okay, this is not something that is desirable nor sustainable for me, right? Like I don't want to live my life in this way. Like I really, really don't. So I really like that we're coming back to this because I think it's also time that we're going to wrap up the podcast. And there was one final question. There is one final question I had from the beginning that I didn't get to ask you. And this is coming back to the attention to detail. Is it on purpose that you don't capitalize letters on the actual website? Is there a reason for that?
Absolutely, it's on purpose.
I figured it was.
It's funny you say that because we get people will email us. I can't stand the lowercase, everything lowercase. It infuriates me so much that I can't use your product. So there's that end. And there's the people that are like, oh, I didn't even notice. It's so funny. I think it's hilarious when people are like, I can't stand how everything's lowercase. Like, it looks ridiculous. Like, you're a data analysis company. Like, you should be more formal. The reason that we actually did that comes back to that corporate culture. If data analysis is intimidating, and it's like to people who aren't really, some people just kind of like think data analysis, they just think of like the matrix screen with like just like a million numbers. And it's not really like that. And we want to kind of like break down that barrier of entry for people who don't really know what it is. And a subconscious way to make it more like fun and not corporate, I guess, is making everything lowercase. When you see everything lowercase, it's just like, it makes it a little bit less official to where you're like, oh, it's a little bit more like, I'm okay with kind of like dancing around, kind of playing around. I was on the phone with our designer yesterday. We're redesigning the whole website. We're doing the mobile version. And he was like, dude, can we please get rid of this lowercase? It's because like all of our things auto correct to capital, like an uppercase letter on the new sentence. So we have to go back. We have to make it like it creates like a huge amount of work. So he's like, please, can we please just like remove this lowercase thing? And I was like, do you know how much work we're gonna have to go back and update everything? All of our email flows, all the text, everything. So, I mean, I'm curious what you guys think. I mean, honestly, like, what do you guys think? Should we remove it? Should we make it uppercase? Should we keep it lowercase?
I actually love it. So there's a reason why I noticed, and it was something because I pay a lot of attention to this. I write website copy, like I generate a lot of this stuff, right? So I noticed it, and you guys have done it in a way where like I know that it's intentional. Like I am very much a guy that's like everything has to be like properly, like I'm very OCD about this stuff. Right. So of course it was something that I noticed. I was like, wait. And then I look at every line. I'm like, oh, they're doing this on purpose. Why? Like I need to ask them why. And I don't know. It created some curiosity within me because I really like I already before we ever had this conversation, I understood that it was an intentional thing, and it made me curious. So it was something that made me ask myself questions about like, hey, like what does this represent, or like why are they doing this, right? Like, and that's why I personally like it. Like I think that it's something different. Even as someone that's like super like, oh, like I need everything to be punctual, like every T, every I, like. Like when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's actually interesting. And I haven't really seen other people, kind of doing it. And I think for me, I like it because I do see this like almost like this less corporate or like a little bit more of a fun element, a little bit more personable element in the world of data collection, in the world that's very like rigid, numbers driven. I personally do like it. So
Good.
yeah, I just thought I would ask you because I knew it was on purpose, and that was one of the first things I noticed about the website. I was like, oh, they're doing this on purpose. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's we might change it, but I'm pretty sold on it right now. I'm pretty sold on it right now because it does have that fun aspect. It does make it like, we don't want you to feel like you're walking into a room of like data analysts. We want it to make it more of a feeling of like
everyday trade.
Yeah. It's more fun. It's more like personable, like you said. So, I mean, I appreciate the question. Some people don't even notice. So maybe like subconsciously they notice, but I appreciate the question. Some people despise it, but I mean, okay. It's okay.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time today. Andre, really, really loved having you here. I want to thank both of you guys, James, for hooking this up, and Andre for your time today. We just ran a collaboration giveaway for those of you guys who don't know. We just did a collab, and I think we should definitely do some more stuff, more cool stuff coming up. We'll have a chat about it, and let's see other ways we can kind of bring some fun to the people. But let's wrap up today's podcast. Appreciate you both for being on here today, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
All right. Thanks, guys.